Welcome to Magic.ai, the operating system for hospitality. At Magic, we know an operating system is more than just software and systems. It's about people, because hospitality is nothing without them. So supporting the hospitality community is our number one goal.
I think there needs to be more of a support system. Like, you have to love this business and you have to love every aspect of it, including sharing tribal knowledge on what is successful and also tribal knowledge of what is a failure.
Founded by lifelong experts, we're building the place where everyone in hospitality, from seasoned pros to first-timers, can gather, share, and grow together. Plus, we're crafting scalable tools and AI-supported software to boost your business. Dive into our vibrant community platform packed with meaningful conversations and robust tools and templates designed just for you. Need more? Our custom software solutions have got you covered. From recruiting and staffing to digital playbooks and dashboards, we're working on building a unique hub of resources unlike any other. Magic is your single point of origin for important conversations, accessible tools, valuable insights, and more. Join us at magic.ai. The evolution of hospitality is here.
If I tell you something 3 times and you still screw it up and you still don't get me what I need on time, we are going to have some issues, and it's not going to be pleasant, and you will probably not work here for very long. That is just the way this business has got to work. If you take the time and come in 10, 20 minutes, half an hour early and ask me to teach you something, I am also the person who will drop whatever I'm doing and will calmly and very courteously teach you something and make you better. But you have to have that want, and you have to have that zeal.
Born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, Hugh started cooking at age 15. He worked in restaurants after school and learned as much as possible. Taking these experiences, Hugh developed a style of his own, forging together the beauty of the South with the flavors of Europe. Hugh opened Atlanta restaurant Empire State South in the summer of 2010 and coffee shop Spiller Park Coffee in November of 2015. Chef Acheson has now left the hustle and bustle of restaurants behind and has pivoted to become a private chef and is loving every minute.
If it makes enough to make you happy, but that's equating then again money to happiness. We got to stop doing that. We have to be like, are you really happy? Because this industry is so hard in so many ways. I have got a ton of issues always in my world with who I am and the person I try and be and the work we do on ourselves. But I'm always proud of those type of initiatives that I've done, but not everybody has to do them. I think everybody should do something that makes them feel good, that's unselfish and for the right reasons, is for the community. Oh, I'm definitely still a chef. I mean, it's my occupation. I guess my apprehension about being called a chef outside by people I don't know is I come from really French kitchens, and it's a way of addressing a hierarchy that's natural within a kitchen but unnatural anywhere else. So I've never really wanted to continue that unnaturalness of a hierarchy when I'm walking down in Whole Foods and somebody's like, "Hey, chef," and I'm like, "Dude, you don't know me from Adam. I'm not your boss, and I don't want to be your boss. I don't even know you." To me, it's a respectful term within a kitchen, but if you're not within the kitchen, then it's got no place in the outside world. And then it's got a tangential issue with me with celebrity chefdom, which I don't, I shy away from. And even though I've been referred to as such, it's kind of like a rash.
Well, you are an anomaly in some respects because you are a chef's chef, a cook of all cooks, but you are also, a public guy. I've seen you on the Food Network and Top Chef and some of these other things. So, you're out there. How do you kind of,
how do you purse that? How do you live that lie, Hugh? I don't know. I mean, I think that the biggest thing is to realize like what you want to be. And though I've happily been the dipshit on television, I've always poked fun of the industry, and I've always poked fun of the sort of, this putting chefs on a mountain and the adoration of them just for that term. You should be
Yeah.
adored on how you treat your people and how you treat your community and the care you have for food, and you properly pay people to grow amazing stuff for you. But the power trip, male dominated chef world, I've always enjoyed sort of poking and prodding a little bit.
Yeah.
So, in an Instagram post, when you decided to move on from 5 and 10, you wrote, "Torches should be passed." You made a personal decision to leave the restaurant world behind and decided to examine some new opportunities and use your amazing skill set outside of restaurant kitchens. What brought you to that decision?
I think a number of things. I think the industry's been really stressful. It's been really hard in the last 5 years. Everybody talks about the pandemic. I thoroughly enjoyed the pandemic. I like my living room. But the industry's hard. We've had a deterioration of workforce. We have costs rising in every respect. It's, in fine dining. I look at people who make 20% and I'm amazed at how they do it. And frankly, I don't understand how they do it. And there's pressures from all sides. And then, you look at expansion and brand and the idea of, you want to be a successful chef these days, you should have 6, 7, 8 restaurants. But you forget and you lose track that you were known for one back in the day, and you proved your mettle in one. And sometimes proving your mettle means that maybe you're not the best trainer. Maybe you're not the best person to teach other people exactly what to do to add that little bit of something that made your place different from everyone else, that had that sort of sense of, there's just a feeling when you walk into a great restaurant, and it's just pervasive and it's natural. And nobody has to say anything. They just get it.
Seamless.
You see the staff, you see the people, everything's working well, but there's a contentedness to things, and there's a naturalness to things. Nothing's forced. To me, the best restaurant to exhibit that in the last 10 years is, it's name dropped a lot, but Joe Beef is just one of those places where it's just fun to go there and be there. And they understand the nuance of, I'm in New York. It's not Danny Meyer hospitality. It's hospitality that says, we got this. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fun. We just want you to have fun. And everything that happens around that whole thing is 100%. But when you begin to do, the pressures of having multiple restaurants and figuring out that, you're having to succeed at one to bail out the other, and you're having to shimmy around to different places and prove that you're still doing FaceTime and everything. And that's exhausting. And that's lovely. And I love the industry. I treasure it. And it's given me so much. And I ain't a little twit about, it's too much or whatever, but it's a lot. And I'm 53. Both of my kids were all Canadian and American, and both my kids are in Canada and go to school at Montreal and University of Toronto. And being in the South is far away. And being in the South, the South has been, as a displaced Canadian, the American South embraced me. But the embrace of the American South is a bit barbed. It's a confusing place to be, and it's got a lot of historical issues, and they're still parsing through them. And it was just time for me to move on and sort of let go of some of the financial baggage the restaurants constantly bring. It's hard. There was a woman chef, and I forget her name, but she was pretty big deal. I think she was in Portland, and she passed away too young. And one of the things, Portland, Maine, not Maine, sorry, Portland, Oregon. But one of the things it wasn't Naomi. No, Naomi was a really close friend. That was disastrous. I forget this woman's name, but she said, you haven't really been a chef of an independent restaurant unless you've sold your car to make payroll. Ha ha, that's funny. And then I did it. I sold a BMW M2, which I loved, and because I needed to make payroll on my main restaurant, and this was at the very beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what was happening. And that feeling of financial entanglement to things just got me like, why are we so what am I doing wrong in this? You know, and I've had investors in the past, but usually just went at it alone, and I never came from much. So it was always cobbled together with a lot of banks being very kind and nice. But the thing about business is, somebody showed me a pro forma about something they wanted to do the other day in the Hamptons, and it was just shit. I mean, it was just like stupidest aspirational. And I remember sitting in a banker's office one time, and he said, well, this looks pretty good. And I looked at him and I said, well, I got to be honest. Anybody can put anything on a balance that has not happened yet.
Totally.
You can dream big,
100%.
and
That's why I hate
it's
budgets.
It's not, unless it's really conservative and realistic, and you really know everything. Like this one thing I looked at, it just didn't have half of the costs we go through in a month. Which, Matthew, as you know, I mean, those costs of it's not just that the cost of food and the cost of labor and the cost of insurance and everything has gone up, and leases and everything. But it's the fact that 25 years ago when I opened 5 and 10, I didn't have, all these subscription services and, reservation system services and all these things that, at the end of the day, they just add up. I mean, it's, and it's $5,000 to $10,000 a month or whatever, but you got to remember, this is a sparse profit margin. And so that type of stress, I work for a private couple right now who are they're kind, and it's easy, and it's as challenging as I want it to be, which means I challenge myself every day. And I want to write and do other things, and I want to explore, I want to cook new food, and I want to have fun. I want to organize great festivities and stuff for them. But it's entirely doable without the stress of doing what I had done for years. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I love employing people. I love being the chef in the kitchen, not because it boosts my ego, because frankly, and this is not meant to sound egotistical, I'm just really good at it. I'm really good at leading a team. I'm really good at ascertaining strengths and weaknesses, and how to pitch into every day, be like, the dishwasher died. No, the human dishwasher died. What do we do to get forward? And sometimes it's the machine that's broken. But I mean, it's just, I've always treated hospitality like an ER, and it's all a matter of triage. And I'm very good at that. So yeah, it was just time to move on. But it doesn't mean that psychologically I don't deal with, did I drop out of the industry? Am I a failure now? I think the restaurant industry has entirely changed. Again, I guess to the essence of the question, what that means to be a chef has entirely changed.
Yep.
I think the sort of idea of putting out fires and being sort of an ER, constantly fixing problems, is something that a lot of restaurant owners feel. And if the margins aren't big enough to make up for the headache of running a restaurant year after year, month after month, it's exhausting and it's defeating.
Yeah. I mean, you said something interesting, which is like, if it makes enough to make you happy, but that means that's equating then again money to happiness, and we got to stop doing that. We have to be like, are you really happy? Because this industry is so hard in so many ways. And again, I am not singing playing the Chinese violin here. I've been through it in this industry, and we all have. Don that term and put it on an apron every day and cook. And I don't care if you've been on a TV show or not, or written books or won awards or whatever. We've all been through it. And it's all hard. But it's redeeming too. And there's an energy about it that's beautiful, and you love it. But at the end of the day, can you move on? And I think that now chefdom means so many different things. The private sector has opened up immensely. Working for corporates has totally changed. So, there's a world out there that could be good in the future of food. And we really have to think about that a lot too, which is, what is our place in not just our community of food, But in the world of food, how do we change some of these systems slowly but surely and get organized and make it a better future?
So, a lot of what you were have been talking about, I think, is the profitability of model of restaurants, which we discuss a lot in these calls and in these interviews. And I know you've got some feelings on it. In your words, you said in an email exchange that we had back and forth, how the fuck do you make money in restaurants? And I think we've just kind of been starting to talk about that. But in the effort to potentially wade into that complex question, were there certain tools specifically that you felt like you were lacking that could have helped you be more profitable in the moment when you had all the restaurants? Or did you just feel like the forces of nature were too strong?
No, I think they're definitely tools. It's either, look, when I had one restaurant and two restaurants and even three restaurants, where we did really well. And for a long time, and I mean a long time in industry years, which is, a good decade, 15 years of real utter economic strength, and watching numbers really closely. But we also kept it simple. And that was the key. I mean, 5 and 10, when I first started, we were only open for dinner, and I would have my 6-month-old strapped to my stomach as I was making gnocchi in the kitchen at 9 a.m. And I was the chef owner and the only person there until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And by that point in time, I had made 2 soups for the day. I had done all the butchery with this kid in either a swingy chair or up stuck to my chest. And then, the cooks would get in, we'd have a meeting, we'd do sort of inner kitchen lineup, and then I would go write payroll. I cleaned the bathrooms every morning. I checked in all the food. I sent back the fish, more than that fishmonger ever wants to remember. And I just called people and sourced everything. I mean, I had a sous chef, but ostensibly I was doing all the management of the restaurant. I ran the whole wine program. So that's great. It's romantic. It's beautiful. It works until you're like, wow, this is really good. It exhausting. So you hire a sommelier staff and you hire a general manager and immediately lose that touch that people began to love because they'd call me at, 11:30 in the morning for a reservation. It was me who answered the phone, and they knew who I was. I knew who they were, and Beatrice would be crying in the background, and I'd be like, no problem. She does that. No big deal. And you move on, and that's great. But people love that. Right. But that's the other thing is it's like sometimes you change little things like that, and people don't like it as much because you're not there, and they kind of think they own you. And it's like, I get that. I want to be here all the time too and do this and make gazillions of dollars and not actually have to work at all and create a zombie who does my job, but whatever. So I don't know. And then, so you bring in all those tiers of management and support in different roles, and it immediately begins to dilute. Yeah. That's a big problem unless you can really be a Danny Meyer and create these institutions of goodness. But I'm not that guy. You know what? The other thing about chefdom is we all need to figure out what type of person as a chef we are and be that person. We don't need to try and be Danny Meyer or Tom Colicchio or Thomas Keller, who once would refuse to sign somebody's book at my restaurant because he didn't have his calligraphy pen with him. And I immediately wanted to strangle him and shit down his throat. But that's a longer story, and that's about me.
Are you sure it's about you?
No,
I don't know.
I don't think that is actually. It's weird.
Well, I want to dig in. I want to dig into something you just said because it's great, and it is the reference to living to be the person who we want to be as chefs and entrepreneurs. In my mind, as I have come to know you a little bit over the years, you always kind of, in my eyes, helped herald this kind of new movement of equitable workplaces and hospitality. Before that was really a thing, it was just the right thing to be doing. And you were one of the people who I saw doing that it really resonated with me as an operator, right? I was like, finally, there's a voice out there that is saying like, hold on, this is about humans. We take care of the fucking humans, right? And like that was new for me at that time, as you kind of were, at the height of your restaurant career. I always saw you as this kind of like anti-douche, like someone who truly cares about the success of their team, who valued the unique skills that each person brought to the table, who wanted to find new ways to do business and finding new ways for your restaurants to be connected to your community. And that gets me to my next question, which is, being a community champion is now more important than ever for those who want staying power. How do you see that evolution and coming to kind of where we are today, and the expectations that are on chefs and owners and operators to have that community leadership ability?
It's a slippery slope. I would not think it's a prerequisite for success. I think that it should be an outlet for, in the difficult world of slogging in a kitchen, that some of your redemptions should come from the insight and nurturing and nourishment that you give to your community, because it helps you. And maybe that is selfish to make yourself feel better, but if you're really doing it, then you should be deserving of that. I don't think if we demand that people, do public advocacy, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because a lot of people do it horrendously, and if they're not going to be supporting a community in a way that we want them to. But I think at the same time, it's important. And I think that, look, if I'm going to market myself, I don't really want to market it. I just want to do stuff that's good and helpful. Yeah. And whether it be making, 50,000 tacos to get people to vote, or whether it's, supporting, all the farms and really getting them out there in our localized area of Athens, Georgia, when I used to live there, those are super important. Or whether it be starting a home ec curriculum for the public school, because I just got hell-bent when my kids were going to school that needed to change, and we could do that. And I have got a ton of issues always in my world with who I am and the person I try and be and the work we do on ourselves. But I'm always proud of those type of initiatives that I've done. But not everybody has to do them. I think everybody should do something that makes them feel good, that's unselfish and for the right reasons, is for the community. Whether
I think that ties into what you were saying about chefs finding out who they are. What kind of chef do you want to be? And I think that really makes sense in terms of what kind of chef are you? What kind of person are you in the world? What resonates with you when you want to give back? Is it making tacos so that people vote? Is it feeding people who have just been through a natural disaster? Is it, what resonates with you personally? And then when you give, it comes from a more authentic place.
Yeah. Whereas it used to be, there's still sort of boastful young chefdom of that sort of, I'll cook you under the table. You have no idea what you're talking about. I could learn 100 things from Matt, and Matt could learn 100 things from me. I could learn 100 things from Caroline, and you could learn 100 things from me. It's like you're building a team. These days in anything, it's like you're building a team. Assemble yourself with the best people around that you can. Find people who are better and smarter than you, and teach them how to be a little bit like you in the way that people like you and respect you.
Yep.
So it's not that hard.
A lot of restaurateurs that we've spoken to have really spoken about being humble and putting their ego aside and learning from whoever is around them. And
their team,
one that stays in my mind is Duff Goldman says that when he judges children or kids on the kids baking championship, if they do something that he doesn't know how to do, he says, that's really cool. Can you show me how to do that? And I love that he is one of the most famous pastry chefs, and he is asking, he is still learning. His ego is not so big that he doesn't think he has things to learn from.
That's because he's wonderfully still a kid at heart and is able to sort of lean down a little bit, look at a kid in the eye as an equal and say, that's cool, teach me. And that's cool. Just as a human thing, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because that projects an equanimity about everything around you, which is so unchef-like. Chefs are so good.
I think you do reach a season in your life too, where it starts to matter. The connections that you have to your community start to matter more, and you start to find yourself, seeking that fulfillment to give back, not in a self-serving way, but in a way that your priorities change, right? And you kind of recognize that your impact in the world can be bigger than just yourself and your immediate surroundings. And for me, that came with time. And a lot of that for me has manifested itself in mentorship and the way that I kind of look at younger folks and the ways that I like to work with them. Do you think that the idea around mentorship and what you're talking about now has kind of helped fuel your career in your restaurants? Like the let's treat, the kind of quote, let's treat people and do good, right? Kind of, I can imagine that trickled down to your team, right? You were a great mentor to many, and now those folks are out running their own places. Like, what does mentorship mean to your legacy?
Oh, it's a weird world. It's the diaspora of the restaurants that I've run is one of the proudest things. I mean, watching people from coast to coast have amazing influence over the food that people are doing. You get nominated for beer awards. And I mean, it's like, and literally every restaurant worth anything in Athens, Georgia, and a quarter of them Atlanta have some direct link to us somehow at my restaurant,
totally.
Which is so cool. Or if I go out to LA or San Francisco or Portland, Oregon, or, Aspen or wherever, and, bump into old cooks who are like, just wanted to know that your restaurant was key to what I do. And I'm like, that's awesome. Watching Brian Dunsmore in LA.
Yeah.
Brian was a dipshit line cook who I used to rake over the coals. He'd come in and be like, I got a new tattoo on my belly. It says gang style or something. I'm like, what the fuck? Get to work. But, that's a guy who still texts me all the time and is like, man, it's so cool that we do this and it's great and thank you. And I'm like, thank you. You're awesome. And so, yeah, it's a hilarious group of people who are so different and wonderfully so, but they're also pro, and they learn that pro stuff, and they learn how to act in a kitchen, and they learned how to not be a fucking creep, which, unfortunately so many chefs are. And, the fact that I've got 3 older sisters and 2 daughters and, it changes the way my outlook on the world. And it changed from an early age, my outlook on how we run kitchens. And that, again, equanimity, and we go about this in the same day, and the results on the plate and the results on how efficient you are in the kitchen. And the result is, at the end of the day, we put up our knife kits and we smile, we wash our hands, and we go home. And we don't worry about it, because ain't nothing in food that's willing to, get totally frazzled at 3:00 in the morning about, unless you work.
So you said earlier that you sort of worked in some French kitchens where, there was a real hierarchy, right? Okay. So how did you move from being sort of raised in this hierarchical,
Brigade.
I assume, sort of punitive system to being a leader in the industry who really believes in equality in the kitchen and treating your employees well? How did that
I don't
transition
think
happen?
equality necessarily means that it's an equality in respect, and you're respected for what you bring to the table. There's still a professional hierarchy in all the kitchens I would be running, just because that's the way I was trained and that's how things get done. So, But it's not a hierarchy where the chef is absent and the sous chef does everything and then everybody else is treated like crap. It's not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Right.
best position, the most
where
respected
the
one
chef,
is the dishwasher.
or where the chef
you know,
has anonymity to be an asshole because they're
Right,
not getting the
right.
results they want, right? Like that's
You
really
know,
what.
we're painting a rosy picture in a lot of ways. I can be an asshole. I am very upfront in saying that. I can be a very stern person in a very professional manner when if I tell you something 3 times and you still screw it up and you still don't get me what I need on time,
Yep.
we are going to have some issues and it's not going to be pleasant and you will probably not work here for very long. That is just the way this business has got to work. If you take the time and come in 10, 20 minutes, half an hour early and ask me to teach you something, I am also the person who will drop whatever I'm doing and will calmly and very courteously teach you something and make you better. But you have to have that want and you have to have that zeal. So yeah, it never means that it's not a rosy, this is not a hippy dippy, we all feel good about the commune type of kitchen. This is a professional kitchen and we run it like it and we get the job done. It does not mean that we don't have fun along the way, that Hugh's not a jackass making jokes at the pass all the time and having fun with the scenario of what this is. But we are playing restaurant and we will do it well. And we do it well because that's how we pay our bills.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you said before COVID that you had many years where your restaurants were financially very stable and successful. What do you think were the main ingredients, pun intended, that made your restaurants at that time, pre-COVID, so sustainable and
I mean, they were
successful?
sustainable they were sustainable to the profit margin that I wanted, that I felt comfortable achieving. I was not pushing them to make 20%. If we made 7-8%, I was more than happy.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, that means that I can spend more on food costs and get better quality. I can spend more on labor costs and get better, better help and hopefully longer people. I don't have to train every 6 weeks as they leave because I'm unwilling to pay them $2 more an hour. So I think it's just a matter of, we created a pretty good, simple system to make money, and we knew what it was. But then a lot of things started changing, and it wasn't just COVID. But lease rates, you're in a 10-year lease, and you finally wake up one day or writing the rent check, and you're like, wow, when I did the pro forma and business plan on this, it was half this amount. But this just amortized to that, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I've got a 5-year option, and it's going to go up more. So you begin balancing what's the right economic move here. And I'm the son of an economist, but I also dropped out of college. I'm not the best business person. I've got a couple of those in my family who I can, ask for advice. But, restaurants are pretty simple in the way they do costing. But I still, I don't know, Matthew, how do people make millions of dollars in this industry?
Well, we've talked a lot on this show about diversification, and it's something that we're just seeing more and more of in terms of, chefs, owners, operators getting outside their comfort zone and expanding their footprint beyond their 4 walls, whether that means, products in center aisle in grocery or CPG or, event spaces or all these other kind of ancillary opportunities for revenue, which ultimately drive the success of your original concept, right? Kind of like this circuitous approach to revenue generation as opposed to just standing something up and assuming it's going to be okay, right? Or kind of managing to that. And that's kind of a whole different game. We talked with the Voltaggio brothers a lot about that because they're doing more and more things that are outside of the restaurant walls. They're doing brand deals, they're doing licensing things, they're doing, whatever, airport stuff. And in sports arenas, and now they're working with Live Nation, and they're like building burger kiosks all over the country for concert venues. Like that stuff didn't fucking exist when we were coming up. Like those relationships really weren't there. It's kind of it's just not even relatable at all to where I feel like restaurants were 20 years ago. So things have changed. I would say people are getting smarter about how to, brand themselves maybe and find the opportunities within those branding solutions that can deliver, more revenue. But I would say the corner store mom and pop restaurant for me is still the thing that I hold the most revered, but it is probably the hardest, right, to this day.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's also the North American mentality about what is success and what I know a lot of chefs who always say this sort of famous thing, mostly in North America, because they don't really understand, but sometimes a lot of them do. But they say, yeah, I'd love to sell all this stuff and just open up a little bistro and live upstairs.
Right.
No, you don't. Because you know how hard that is? You know how hard that is in mom and pop store on Friday night when you get out of there at 12:30 because they finally shut down the kitchen and it really is only a 4-person kitchen and there's 6 people in front of the house and one of them's your spouse or whatever. And you got to wake up the next morning and get ready for Saturday brunch because everybody wants you to do that. And you got to wash the floor mats and you got to make sure the dish bar up there and then somebody doesn't show up and your kids got to go to school. It's like, it's not that easy. We romanticize this business a lot. And I think that what like the Voltagiers are doing is honest. I mean, I've done all sorts of Live Nation deals. I've done all sorts of stuff like that in hotel deals. And frankly, and this is, it's something I never will regret saying. I'm just not good at that stuff. It immediately, it's like somebody has immediately pulled the heart out of anything I'm doing. And I like to make sure that I can be financially have enough financial windfall creating my own stuff is filled with heart. And right now I have one job and no worries, and it pays me a good amount of money, and I can live in New York and in the Hamptons, and it's fine. It's enough for me. But this Jeff dream of having 25 different things go on makes me really think about like knitting together a noose. I mean, it's really hard. It really is hard.
Well, heart has always been, I think, at the heart of heart. I'm just going to say heart. How many times can I say heart in a sentence? Heart has always been at the core of, who you are, I think, as a chef. And I don't know you that well, but I would say as an individual as well, doing what you do with authenticity and honesty and selflessness to I think a large degree. Seems like a core concept, right, in the Acheson repertoire, and I think that translates to the food. Like your food was in my eyes like really refined in some senses, like technique, sourcing, right, things like that. But it was also really simple, and I say that as a compliment. Like it was beautifully simply crafted, but with a lot of intentionality, right?
Yeah, which is a reflection of where I'm from and what I've been through and where I grew up in Canada and then the South. But it's also a reflection of where professionally I landed to open up my first restaurant, which was Athens, Georgia. So, you open up a restaurant in 2000 and, I'm serving sweetbreads with a little souffled grits and this tiny little bit of succotash and a chow vinaigrette over it. And, and then I have to explain, I forgot that I'm like, I have to explain what sweetbreads are to people and they're lymph nodes and whatever. But then I'm like, just look at them like it's a chicken McNugget. That's really good. Right. So, that simplicity came born out of not just the fact that a ton of my diners hadn't lived around the world and tasted everything. And this was new to them and they were excited.
Yeah.
But that we're still in the sort of the dying days of continental cuisine and big flavors were still coming on the market. I think my food's changed a lot in the last few decade. But it's still at its core is just meant to be technical and simple at the same time.
Yeah. Is simple food on the way back? Like, because I feel like I'm seeing it more and more, like this kind of stripping, presentations down to like 3 items on a plate that are just really well done, like a great protein, a nice sauce, and a little vegetables, right? Like I feel like it's kind of back in vogue.
Yeah, I think for a number of different reasons. I mean, I think we still have to strip out prep time, and we don't have enough people, so we have to simplify dishes. We have to get rid of a number of things. And look, somebody needs to give knighthood to the person who did a roasted carrot salad and first charged $18 for it, because that's the best food cost in the world, and it changed the world in which we dine. So, that person deserves a good retirement. But it's all a matter of these days. It's like, this from chefdom. It's like, Matthew, how old are you?
48.
Okay, I'm 52. I'll be 53 tomorrow. But so we grew up in this age, and I even grew up more in it of like French food was French food, and they knew how to cook the vegetables, and nobody else did. And so I think as we finally learned how to really look at a vegetable beautifully from a North American perspective and get a ton of different outlooks on it, we can reduce food costs and make food simpler by relying on vegetables more. But, America used to hate Brussels sprouts until we made them really crisp. And then some idiot decided to lacquer them with like bacon and maple syrup. And though I love maple syrup, I don't want them anywhere near my Brussels sprouts. So, but those advances in how we cook vegetables and stuff have really changed things. So I think there's a reverence of simplicity, but I think the simplicity you're about to see on the horizon is really inflected with the globalism that's really on the plate right now, which is so far away from fusion food. That's beautiful because it's got a knowledge base, and the people want to know more about Korean food, and they want to know the differences in geographic areas of Indian food. So I think that, it also goes back to, it's like, we're still in the process of dispelling this stupid notion that things like Chinese food and Mexican food should be really affordable. It's like, you
Totally.
just said two of the most complex culinary maps on the world.
Totally.
And you said
Alex Stupak said the exact same thing to us.
Yeah, it's like, fuck, I hate that. I hate when people do it. But I do love when Alex Stupak says the same thing as me, because it makes me feel like a little metalhead who's really gifted.
You did just say, though, that you would never put maple syrup with your Brussels sprouts, which I'm going to take as a challenge. And,
it's not
and I know
more
what
of
I'm
words.
I know what I'm cooking for you the next time I see you, because I do these beautiful roasted Brussels sprouts with a little maple agrodolce that are fucking out of this world.
Okay, I can do the agrodolce. Just you got to have a high vinegar content, because I don't like sugar in my main course foods. I'm weird that way.
Who is the one person you hired that transformed your business?
Oh, there were so many. I think there was, oddly enough, in Athens, Georgia, I hired a pastry chef in the first year named Linda Oosterhuis, who had worked with David Vooley for a long time in New York. And she was just the most utterly talented, head screw on her shoulders pastry chef. The stuff she would make was just so god-awfully good. It was just and she just taught me a lot, but she just rounded out the whole scenario. What we had going gave me a missing skill set to the package that we were offering.
Nice.
Love that.
Okay, what is the best marketing decision that you've made for your business?
Not to hire a PR firm. Very
I think that's a great answer.
It's just they're expensive, and this is not right for everybody. But I want to promote myself the way I want to be promoted, which is I can only do that myself. And if you follow me on social media, I'm not a big fan of promoting my businesses. I'm a big fan of just showing my eclectic weirdo side, and that gets me a lot of people who want to support us. But the best thing you can ever do to market yourself is do a good job.
That's right.
What is the one tool you use every day?
these days a Chinese cleaver that's really inexpensive, because I was
nice.
in the last year, I started being like, okay, I use a chef knife and an akiri and a boning knife and whatever, sashimi knives every day. And now I was like, I just wanted to really learn how to get this one knife ultra sharp all the time and use it for everything. So it's made me completely more dexterous, and it's totally different type of knife skills, but it's actually, and it's like, it's those old videos of watching Yan Ken cook and he's deboning a chicken with one.
I love
it does in like 28 seconds, and you're like, this man is amazing. I want to do that. So, still at 52, I want to learn new things. And so right now, it's a $30 Amazon Chinese cleaver.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome.